Hello everyone, my name is Keel. I am a GM, I've been a GM for just over 12 years, and today I'm going to do into the second installment of our World Building Wednesdays, where we created our first note and set up our initial overview of our world in the last session. Today I'm going to focus on creating the skeleton of the world in terms of my file structure that I usually use for all of my games. I will also be uploading a new set of rules and structures that I will be using so that the system will know exactly what I am working with. And then we will use the AI to create our first chat interface. The goal of this series, as always, is to help you to understand my process in using a system like ScriptoriumGM to support my workflow and how I use the different softwares. On the left-hand side, the first thing you will notice is that we have a set of areas we can add new information. So you've got a new tab, which will allow you to add a new note, a folder tab, which will allow you to create a new folder, and an upload section, which will allow you to upload documents from your file structure or from wherever you host them on your computer or online. The first thing we will go through is the folders that I usually create and how to create these folders and make them work for you. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to click folder, then you're going to give your folder a name. I typically have a specific folder for story information. This will be the world ideas and my backgrounds and anything that I think is useful for the story itself. So my plot, my context, session notes, things like that, that'll all go in here. So I'll create this folder. Now you will see it has appeared on the left-hand side. Now I can create a subfolder in here by either clicking on this new folder option, which will add a subfolder to that story section. And I can also create a new note in here by hovering over that, and it'll create a new note within that story page. I'm going to create a new subfolder in here, which I'm going to call Worldbuilding. And there we go. You see the world building file has popped up, and my world ideas will then go in there. So in order to do that, I'll just drag and drop it in there. And now I have an initial start of my skeleton for the world that I will create. Now I'm going to create the rest of the tree, I suppose, the rest of the information that I'll use, the different folders and structures, and once I'm done, we will come back in. Okay, so I've now set up all of the folders that I typically use, which I will go through in detail now. So first and foremost, we have an inbox. This is really just for me to capture any notes that I may need during the campaign where I don't want to put them into a specific location or go and find something like create a new NPC in the friendly NPCs folder. I just want a quick inbox to say, you need to remember to make this person and flesh them out at a later stage. Then we have the notes that I'll use more often for leaning on for the system to drive information. So the first thing is the bestiary. This is obviously in alphabetical order, which is why I put the 00 in front of the inbox so that it's always at the top and easily accessible for me. So the bestiary contains 3 different folders: beasts, constructs, and unique creatures. These often won't be NPCs, they'll be specific things that I want to have in my game that have their own stat sheets and things like that, which I'll use ScriptoriumGM to support with, or I'll grab from a different reference or resource. The second one is cosmology, so your gods and your planes. Again, I can add as many more folders to this as I want, but I think these are usually a good starting point. It gives me an idea. The different factions that I might have, so we've got governments, we've got guilds, and we've got orders. Orders might include things like churches or other kind of orders that might exist, whereas guilds will be things for more of a working format, things like an assassin's guild and things like that. Next will be items. I don't have any subfolders for items. They usually just include specific items I want to have referenced in the game. Sometimes they're MacGuffins, other times they might be sentient items, created items, crafted things that the players can interact with in some way or go and get, things like that. It could also be resources. Locations, I'll usually split these, once I've got it all set up, I'll usually split these into different continents, and then within that different countries, and then even within that maybe different towns. So you can see I've kind of created a folder nesting folder structure here for country, continent, and then the locations itself. NPCs, I have quite a few. I have antagonists or villains, my friendly NPCs, who are just generally NPCs that are going to be friendly to the party, whereas antagonists and villains are typically not. General NPCs will be anyone I just kind of want to have available to me and use. They could be good or neutral or bad, depending on how the players interact with them. What typically happens is that I'll create a bunch of general NPCs, and then as the players get to know them, I'll either filter them into friendly NPCs or antagonists. The graveyard, for anybody who does not live past the moment that they meet the players. Or just generally, if anybody dies, or if they know anybody from these different groups that then dies, I can put them in the graveyard, and then when I use ScriptoriumGM, I can say, don't use anybody from the graveyard, because obviously it's still taking into account the notes that are being used. And then story NPCs are anyone that the players come up with during their initial brainstorming and initial backstory creation for the game that we're going to be playing. So often they'll have brothers or family or friends or antagonists, things like that, and I actually want to keep those separately in most of my games so that I know who I'm dealing with, and I can use the story NPCs as a specific folder I can use to ask the AI some questions. Then it's quests. I tend to keep a little quests log just to say what's active, what are they currently working on, what has been completed, and any rumors. Probably want an extra one in here for incomplete or things that tend to happen where the players don't actually finish the quest, so something stops them from finishing that quest. There's a great structure called Trents in some Powered by the Apocalypse games. Where you've got different fronts. Those could be things that are impeding on the players and they're trying to work out which direction to go. Those fronts I would consider rumors or active kind of campaigns. I might change this up actually when I get to it. But for right now, I tend to have like an active, a completed, and then rumors and things that they've heard about that they might not be dealing with completely. And then the final folder that I typically use is the story folder. So this will include everything related to the actual story that I'm trying to create myself. So these will be the players' character sheets, players' backstories, or the character backstories. We should rename that. Plot connections, anything that I look through, and will in a much later session, I think I'll be going through how I create plot connections between different players. Source books, so anything related to the actual source books that I'm going to be using myself, and this is where we're going to upload our first note or our first book. And then world building will be for everything else. So my world ideas is obviously in my world building section here. So that's my general structure. I will change and adapt these as I go for different games. This is very much a skeleton framework, and as I add more stuff, I will change the structure, update the notes, review how those are working. But the idea is mostly to be able to ask the system specific questions about, in this location, in this continent, in this country, could you formulate some ideas for whatever the next session is going to be like. So this helps me to get to that point. So let's upload our first note, our first source book. So what you're going to do is, under the source book section, I'm actually going to, see on the right hand side here, you've got a little 3 dots that you can use. So you can change the icons to be something particular if you would like to, so that all the icons of the notes are the same. Again, you can create a new folder from here or a new note from here, which is also on the side there. But what I'm going to click on is upload file. You'll see the rest is renaming and deleting, which you can do as well. So I'm going to click on upload file. I'm going to go and find the file on my system. And it is, as you can see in the top right here, it is uploading the Mage 20th Anniversary Edition. How do you do that? I don't want the whole of Mage in here because, as I said in the first episode, I'm not actually focused on the setting of Mage the Ascension. I am more focused on the rule set and then making my own world from that rule set. So we've now got the book in. You can see what it's done is it hasn't actually put it into the source book itself. It's just put it into the main section. I think that's just a small tweak that needs to be made, but I can just drag and drop that into there and it will pop it in. There you go. So now we have it in the source books section. And now I can teach this file to the assistant. So I'm not going to be able to change anything about this. If I click on this, I'll get a little note at the top right here to say the file preview is not available yet. This feature is coming soon. So I can't actually look at what this says at the moment. That'll be a feature in the future. But I'm not going to change this note in any major way. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click this teach to assistant, and it will slowly, it will teach that to the assistant. And once it's done, it'll have a little checkbox. So you can see it going through the process now. And once it's done, it'll have this little green icon here to say that it has learned the system. Now, the reason you do that is because that indexes it into the RAG model, which makes it a lot easier to find that information when the questions are being asked of the AI, which we'll do in a few minutes. So now that we've got an initial source book note, I'm going to create a new note in the locations folder. Let's just say in country 1 here, whatever this might be called, I'm going to create a quick new note in here. Probably won't keep this, but all I've done is just click the new note and it's created. And you can see, because this is a locations folder, it's already given me a locations mark. Obviously I can change this if I would like to a particular new icon, but I'm going to keep it with the one that I've had because the locations icon is perfect. So this is a location within the locations folder. Again, if you create a new note in the NPCs, you'll get a little NPC section. The system is smart enough to know what kind of file you have and therefore make some decisions about what the icon should look like. So let's make this new note. I'm just going to go with something completely random, so we're just going to test that it's working with the context I've just put in through the how do you do that file. So I'm going to call this, let's call it the Spire of Power. Okay, so that's my note name, and this is going to be a powerful spire in the country where the main mage sits. Excellent. So I've closed the assistant on the left-hand side here just so that we could focus on the main page. But if I ever want to see the conversation I can have with the AI, just open this, and you can see we can tweak these a little bit and close the screen and have a single focus on a note if I want to. But I'm going to open this up again. So whenever you start a new conversation, if you already have a conversation going, you'll see all the information here. You can drop this down and you can see all the different conversation history that you have. So I have a single note here, and I can begin a new chapter or a new conversation with the AI here. For right now, I'm just going to go with this new conversation. I'm going to rename it to the Spire Power. And that's just so that I know later when I'm looking at my different chats that I might have, this one is particular to me. So I'm going to use the assistant to start my message. So down here, I'm going to say, you know what? I'm actually going to drag and drop this note into the context window here. You cannot do this with source books, but you can do it with any note that's been created. So I'm going to drag it into this so that it knows that this is the particular spire I'm talking about. Okay, great. So we now have a quick overview of a question that I've asked. I've obviously linked to the Spire of Power as a specific location document that I would like to work this off. And obviously it's just going to read this and know what this front page says, a powerful spire in the country where the main mage faction sits. We don't know what mage faction it's going to pull, but I've also given it the indication to look at the source book. How do you do that? To see if it comes up with anything. So let's see what it gives us. So the first thing you'll see is I've got a search for a campaign library. I did have to click to move this, to allow the system to actually access that. But we now have an overview. So what it's done is it's done exactly what I asked. It's given me a description of the Spire of Power. It doesn't have a whole lot of information yet, so it hasn't tried to do too much with the locations or anything like that. But what it has done is given me a nice visual effect, right? It's obsidian black stone walls, drinking light. But what I'm really interested in is each level corresponds to a sphere of influence. So they house matter and forces, mind and spirit, and then prime and correspondence in the highest reaches. Now there are 9 different sections, 9 different spheres within Mage, so it hasn't gotten all of them, but it has realized that there are different spheres of magic, and I haven't given that information anywhere else except in that one book that I've uploaded. So it's already got the idea that this book has information about how these different chambers might work and how that could go up through the different towers levels. So it's read the source book and has decided that that is how it would like to split the information. So we've got a whole lot of information here. Again, I can just take this and put it into the Spire of Power if I wanted to, or I could, and let's do that now. In fact, let's take this section here and say, there you go. Just copy paste that in. And now I have complete control, right? What it says here, I can change as much as I would like to. So instead of obsidian black, let's go with something more marbled with blue tendrils. The obsidian blackstone walls seem to drink in light. There you go. I've made not a significant change to the note, but now whenever I refer to the Spire of Power, because I've changed this note, the system won't try and remember what it had before. It will use this note as its reference to say, oh, the Spire of Power has marbled blue tendrils in the obsidian black wall. So anything I change in here essentially makes a change to whatever comes up in the future, as long as I'm using this note as the reference point. It makes it really easy to get an idea, which is what AI is very good for. It's very good for generating ideas and supporting creativity. I then get to add my stamp on it as much as I want. And if I didn't have an idea for the Spire of Power to start with, this gives me a good starting point, and then I can flesh this out and do more with it. In the next episode, we are going to pretty much delete the Spire of Power node. We no longer need it, and I don't think it's going to be worthwhile. I'll also delete this chat. But in the next episode, we are going to look at the first kind of idea of what happened to make magic disappear. Do we know? Should we work it out? Should we sit and make that plan? So we're going to use the AI to overcome our initial writer's block, create some cool notes, and start to have the AI come up with some ideas as well as create some notes for us. So look forward to that next week.